And a good spiritual morning to you once again. Christ is risen. Christos Anesti. I'm Father Cosmas, and thank you for joining me from my prayer corner here at home to share a cup of coffee this morning and a quick chat. So we talked about, all the different media sources that we have out there that's putting out all this information, and typically, the people that are putting out a lot of this information are our elected officials. They're our politicians. So I thought I would take just a couple minutes today to talk a little bit about the church and politics here in America, because I do get those questions quite often, especially in election years. Father, where does the church stand on politics? Is the church Republican? Is the church Democratic? Is the church third party? Are you a Democrat, Father? Are you a Republican? How do you vote? And what are we supposed to think about, some of these things in the church? So generally speaking, the church should be, and is, whether we like it or not, above politics, especially party politics. The church is not Republican or Democrat or third party. The church has no political affiliation. And priests, in reality, are not supposed to have specific political affiliations. If they do, then they certainly should not make them known to their parishioners. And there's a functional, practical, pastoral reason for that. It could inhibit, your ability as a parish priest to be able to minister to your people. If they don't feel a connection with you, or they feel the opposite, sort of a repulsion, so to speak, from you, because they're Democrat, you're Republican, or vice versa. No one should ever think, well, I'm not going to go to my priest because of that reason. We have enough reasons to not be able to be close to our church. We don't need another one. So the church remains non-affiliated and above politics. I should be able to, and I do, and I enjoy being able to have wonderful, usually humorous, conversations with staunch Democrats or staunch Republicans or third parties. And it's fun to do that because they know Father doesn't have a horse in the race. We're just talking. And I enjoy that. And that's the way that it should be. So speaking from the point of an outsider, so to speak, because I'm not invested in that way in a particular political party, let me just say this. By way of just discussing a little bit about politics and the Orthodox Church. It's interesting from an outsider's point of view, someone not immersed in it, that maybe the system isn't working right now as well as it should. I know that this is an amazing country, a great country. I wouldn't want to live anywhere else. It's America. It's the land of the free. Except for right now when we can't leave our homes. But, it's a health crisis, so let's not get into that. But the system, ideally is amazing. Right now, in reality, not so good, maybe, because we find ourselves limited quite a bit. And we're going to see what the ultimate choices end up being this year, but usually you find yourself with an option of voting for just one or two, basically, political parties. And if you don't happen to agree with either, you're kind of stuck. Because you don't have a third choice, really, at least maybe not a viable third choice. And that's not a great feeling. And I think a lot of people felt that in the last election. These are my two choices? Really? And again, I didn't vote, but had I would have been a little disappointed. Anyway, the system's not perfect, but it's the system that we have. And the church should not be sort of immersed in it. And that's a reality. The other thing we have to remember is that we would be naive to think that a lot of the sources for media and what's going on right now with the coronavirus is not somehow associated. I'm not by any means a conspiracy theory person, but I'm also not an idiot. You don't have to be sort of a conspiracy person to think gee, is healthcare somehow related to business and economics? It's a $1 billion industry. Is that somehow related to politics? all of these things are in bed with each other. Of course, they're related. And so there's no pure political point of view. If you're getting a particular newspaper or online source or television station, just remember that that media source is typically owned by one of the main political parties, and you're usually getting their agenda. I'm sure there is some sort of a media source out there that's completely objective. I haven't found it yet, but I'm sure it's out there somewhere. But for the most part, there's going to be a sense of propaganda and an angle or an agenda being put forth. We just have to know that and be aware of it. And don't be so naive as to think, well, this is what this newscaster said on that station, so therefore it must be objectively true. Certainly they wouldn't be manipulating any of the information. The days of us having 2 or 3 network television stations and us all getting our news from Walter Cronkite, those days are gone. Now there are thousands of resources that put forth information all the time, and they all have their political and economic agendas, and we need to be aware of that. So as Orthodox Christians, we try to stay aware of what's out there. We try to be objective, and we try to make the best decisions that we can. But when we think about the church, we should not think about politics. Those two things should remain separate, as the church always has been and should continue to remain above any sort of party politics or particular political affiliations. Once again, may our risen Lord and Savior bless us and keep us. Christ is risen.